Good morning. And man, it is a good morning, isn't it? It is. I can't even describe to y'all how happy I am to be here again, to be able to be back worshiping with everybody, seeing everybody. Just a word of advice, though. If you don't want to have a long conversation, don't say hi to me this morning, because I'm probably going to trap you and talk to you for a while. I've missed everybody so much. It's just so good to be back again, to be able to worship with everybody, just to see everybody's faces. It's really crazy. I went to go pick up some dinner for Kelsey and I yesterday, and I was in a Panda Express. And so if you came in with a mask, you could do certain things. If you came in without a mask, you couldn't do certain things. And there were just all these rules and all these processes and things. And this guy next to me was kind of chuckling, and I was like, man, isn't it crazy that we just used to walk into places and just do things? Like, we would just walk into a place and we wouldn't think twice, and we would just kind of let the autopilot go on and do what we'd always done. And now, there's always a rule, and there's always a boundary, and there's always this kind of steps you have to go through. It's just crazy how we take that stuff for granted, and how it's so easy to take things for granted when we're able to experience them just all the time. And I think church has been one of those things that I had taken for granted, but I'm really happy to have again. So I wanted to talk for a moment about the idea of dynamic duos. Okay, all of us could probably name a dynamic duo. I thought of a couple, just right off the top of my head. Okay, PB&J, all right. Chocolate and peanut butter, right? Those go good. Apparently, I was really hungry when I started writing these down because they're all food related. So I also thought of, Batman and Robin. Okay, the crime fighting duo. Abbott and Costello, an old comedy routine. The teens don't know who that is. That's okay. And I'm sure all of y'all could think of countless others. If we wanted to talk about just dynamic duos, we could. We could just go back and forth for the entire day and talk about them. I'm sure out here in this audience we have some dynamic duos. Some people that when you put them together, they're either really helpful or they're a whole lot of trouble. So I won't point out any of the latter to not incriminate anyone. But in Matthew 26, we find another kind of dynamic duo of sorts. The thing about these duos is that by themselves, they're great. Okay, Batman by himself is still this vigilante who is fighting crime. Peanut butter by itself is pretty good. But when you add that second element, when you add that other something to it, it becomes something totally crazy. It becomes something even better than it was before. So that's really where the dynamic duo gets its strength, in the fact that there's these two things that, 1 and 1 should make 2, but if you put these 1 and 1 together, it makes like 3 or 4, because there's just this exponential kind of growth between the two of them. So in Matthew 26, I'm going to start reading in verse 26. While they were eating, Jesus took bread, and when he had given thanks, he broke it and gave it to his disciples, saying, "Take, eat, this is my body." Then he took a cup, and when he had given thanks, he gave it to them, saying, "Drink from it, all of you. This is my blood of the covenant, which is poured out for many for the forgiveness of sins. I tell you, I will not drink of this fruit of the vine from now on until that day when I drink it new with you in my Father's kingdom." When they had sung a hymn, they went out on the Mount of Olives. So here in this text, we get two things that when you put them both together, they create something incredibly special. They create something that is incredibly important to all of our lives today. We get these two elements together. We get this idea of body and blood. We get this idea of the fruit of the vine and this bread that together are supposed to symbolize something extremely important. This is Jesus looking forward to his death, having this last meal with his disciples, having this meal and telling them, "I want you guys to continue to do this." And I think sometimes it's kind of easy to get lost in the whole experience, that sometimes we forget to kind of piece out what these two elements are and kind of take a look at them. So that's something I want to do this morning, is take a look at the body, take a look at the blood, take a look at them separately and see what kind of things we can learn and we can see when we look at them just individually. So to look at the body first, I want us to turn over to John chapter 6. We're going to start here in verse 25. But before we do that, a little bit of context. So this is right after the feeding of the 5,000. So Jesus has been teaching all of these people. He doesn't want to send them all away. He instead wants to feed them, give them some food, and then he ends up sending them later after that. So he ends up feeding these people with these loaves and fishes, just a little bit of leftovers, and he ends up making food for 5,000 people. I can't imagine feeding 5,000 people with anything. So it's just an insane miracle. Verse 25 of John chapter 6. When they found him on the river, on the other side of the lake, they asked him, "Rabbi, when did you get here?" "Oh, Jesus, I can't believe that you're here. This is crazy, isn't it? You just fed me a bunch of food, and I can't believe I've run into you again. How insane." Jesus answered, "Very truly I tell you, you were looking for me, not because you saw the signs I performed, but because you ate the loaves and had your fill." Ooh, so he's kind of caught him. He kind of gives him a little bit of a gut check and says, "I know why you're here. You're here to see if you can get another free meal, right? Does everybody have that friend who loves to get the free meal whenever possible? Okay? I mean, y'all know me, so there's a chance you know at least one. But we all know that person who loves to get the free meal whenever possible, okay? Hey, is there food? I'm going to be there. All right? And that's what these people are doing. And Jesus cuts through that very quickly. You're not here because you want to see me perform signs. You're not here because you want to see what I'm pointing to. You just want to come and get some food. And so again, with Jesus, bread is not always bread. Bread's something more than just bread. Verse 27, "Do not work for food that spoils, but for food that endures to eternal life, which the Son of Man will give you. For on him God the Father has placed his seal of approval." Then they asked him, "What must we do to do the works that God requires?" Jesus answered, "The work of God is this, to believe in the one he has sent." So he gives them a little clue. They're like, how are we supposed to do this? Jesus, what are we supposed to do now? He tells them, follow the one who was sent. It's like a little bit of a hint. Verse 30, they still don't quite get it. So they asked him, "What sign then will you give me that we may see it and believe you? What will you do?" We want to see you do something, Jesus. Verse 31, "Our ancestors ate the manna in the wilderness. As it is written, he gave them bread from heaven to eat." They want to see another sign. They want to see something else fantastic. And they're still kind of hinting at the food a little bit. Well, Moses helped everybody get manna in the desert. All right, he was all about that manna. What are you going to do, Jesus? How are you going to impress me? Jesus said to them, verse 32, "Very truly I tell you, it is not Moses who has given you the bread from heaven, but it is my Father who gives you the true bread from heaven. For the bread of God is the bread that comes down from heaven and gives life to the world." So again, he's telling them, this bread that you guys are focusing on, it's not really bread. It's bread from heaven. It's this other kind of bread. It's something that's been sent to you. "Sir," they said, "always give us this bread." Then Jesus declared, I think he gets a little bit tired of the fact that they don't seem to be getting it. "I am the bread of life. Whoever comes to me will never go hungry, and whoever believes in me will never be thirsty. But as I told you, you have seen me and still do not believe me. All those the Father gives me will come to me, and whoever comes to me I will never drive away. For I have come down from heaven not to do my will, but the will of him who sent me. And this is the will of him who sent me, that I shall lose none of all those he has given me, but raise them up at the last day. For my Father's will is that everyone who looks to the Son and believes in him shall have eternal life, and I will raise them up at the last day." So he finally says, it's me. Guys, I am the bread from heaven. I am this bread. So as I think about, the blood and the body, what we're partaking of in this moment of communion is we are remembering, we are celebrating the life and the fact that Jesus came down to this earth in bodily form to give us a way to live our lives. He didn't just come down to do miracles. He didn't just come down to do these wondrous signs, to feed people bread, but he came down to be the sustenance that we need to live a life with purpose and with meaning. He came down and showed us, okay, this is how you live. This is what you do. These are the actions that you need to follow. He gives us that example, something to see and something to go off of. We all need some kind of cookie cutter, some kind of, picture behind the piece of paper to trace, something to follow, something to go towards. And that's exactly what he gives us in his body. is the fact that I came down to show you how to do it, how to live, what to do. Man, these people didn't quite get that. But I have a hard time holding that against them because sometimes I feel like we don't get it either. Sometimes it's really easy to start to look for the physical bread, to look for, what do I need to get through today, Jesus? Just give me the things I need, okay? Help me out to pay my bills, okay? Help me to get through, my day at work. Help me to get through this next interaction. When he's given us something to follow that supersedes that, and yet we want, hey, I just want the little bit that I need right now. I want the physical thing that helps me feel comfortable so that I don't have to worry about anything else. But he instead gives us something that makes us uncomfortable, but gives us that true meaning, this bread from heaven, and that we don't need the temporary bread to continue to sustain us. Now over into Hebrews chapter 9. I want us to take a look at this idea of blood, of the fruit of the vine that we take of. So here in Hebrews, talking again about the blood of Christ, Hebrews gets into a lot of this kind of, because of the name, naturally, he's talking to the Hebrew people. He's making a lot of Old Testament, New Testament connections. He's making a lot of those and showing these people, hey, as somebody who came from this line of Moses, these are some of the points to connect. These are some of the way things have changed. Okay, chapter 9, verse 15. For this reason, Christ is the mediator of a new covenant, that those who are called may receive the promised eternal inheritance, now that he has died as a ransom to set them free from the sins committed under the first covenant. So right now we get this, a little bit of a fuller understanding of exactly what his blood does for us. He's the mediator of a new covenant. So we know the Old Testament, New Testament, there is this new covenant that has come, and that Christ dies as a ransom to set us free from the sins committed under the first covenant. So we see that there was an old covenant. There was an old system. There was an old way that things were done, the law under Moses. But we know that that law was imperfect. We know that that system where we sacrificed, where people made sacrifices, where people tried to atone for their sins in a physical way, it didn't totally work. People were continually sinful. People continually made mistakes. So there was a need for a sacrifice that would then work fully, something that would continue to work throughout time. But not only that, is that there were still sins held against mankind that we couldn't fully wash. So that's what he does. He dies to free us from that old covenant and to bring us into this new covenant. So he pays off, he buys us out from our old debt and takes that on in order to create something new for us. Verse 16, in the case of a will, it is necessary to prove the death of the one who made it, because a will is in force only when somebody has died. It never takes effect while the one who made it is living. It is why even the first covenant was not put into effect without blood. When Moses had proclaimed every command of the law to the people, he took the blood of calves together with water, scarlet wool, and branches of hyssop, and sprinkled the scroll and all the people. He said, "This is the blood of the covenant, which God has commanded you to keep." In the same way, he sprinkled with the blood both the tabernacles and everything used in its ceremonies. In fact, the law requires that nearly everything be cleansed with blood, and without the shedding of blood, there is no forgiveness. So Christ's blood, what we are celebrating in this moment, what we are remembering in this moment, is the fact that we've been given a clean slate. I've been given the opportunity to follow Christ. I've been given the opportunity towards an inheritance of eternal life, even though there's absolutely no way I deserve it. I've done absolutely nothing to deserve it. There's nothing I could do to deserve it. But he has freed me from that. He has given me the opportunity to be able to follow him and to have that slate cleaned regularly because of what he's done for me. He's given me the ability to enter into this new life. He's given me the ability to enter into heaven one day, to be able to experience peace and serenity and fullness with him, even though I don't deserve it in any way. So I pray and I hope that we focus in this next moment on both the example that he's given us something to follow. He's given us him in the flesh that people were able to see, that we are able to read about, that we are able to focus on, to know how to live on a daily basis. But also this blood that cleanses us, this blood that cleanses us from focusing on just today, and a blood that allows us to look forward to something that truly matters, to look forward to something that can truly keep us clean. Individually, both of these things are excellent. Individually, both of these things have tons of meaning. But when you put them together in this one moment, when you put them together and look at them in Jesus' sacrifice, they become something completely unique and special.